Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvaroi. Amen. Okay, good morning, and Erev Shabbos to everybody. Thank you so much for being here and joining. As we jump back in, b'siyata d'shmaya, to Likutei Moharan, the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, zechus yagun aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, amen. Today's shiur is sponsored by Shlomo Rosenblatt as a zechus for Besuras Tevis for Talia Malka Bas Naami, also sponsored by a listener of the shiur who built NØRA, clinically grounded app for shemirat habris. Special Shovavim pricing is less than $1 a week. Link will be included when the shiur is posted. Also sponsored by Zev Klein, the nishmas his parents, Revkah Brent Street, and Ya'kov ben yeshayihu, also dedicated as a zechus for refuah sheleimah for Chaim Yehoshua ben Chaim Miriam, as well as a zechus for refuah sheleimah for Chaim Avrohom Ben Rochel. We should only hear Besuras Tevis and the zechus of our learning together. But Ezra Hashem Yisbarach. So we started yesterday with the incredible Torah Lamed Ches. Amazing teaching. And we were speaking about tefillin. And about how tefillin are siman for dveikus. And a person has to check in with themselves. Where am I vis-a-vis that conscious relationship with Hashem? Like we started yesterday's shiur, it's lav dafka, ecstatic spiritual connection. It just means, is this relationship authentic? Is this relationship real? Right? We don't want to close in the door. Right? Do I feel that my life is unfolding through the lens of this connection, of this relationship? And the symbol for that is tefillin. In the same way we actually learned last night, the shiur will be posted a bit later today. The Berditchver that I mentioned yesterday, we learned inside. And the idea of not being misiach das from tefillin, or the idea of tefillin being something that needs to be completely conscious. You cannot be misiach das, a person can't be distracted from their tefillin while they're wearing tefillin, because tefillin is symbolic of our connection to Hashem, which we should ever be misiach das from. Right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs, being frustrated with Hashem, having questions, that's also part of dveikus, right? It means a person's in the context of that relationship. That's tefillin. And we said in order to get to tefillin, we have to check how we're talking. We have to check our dibur, because dibur could be productive, dibur could be destructive. And we said productive, constructive dibur is the aspect of the ruach peh of Hashem that creates. And destructive dibur is the aspect of sa'ara. Sa'ara, reish ayin is 10 times 27, which are the letters of the aleph beis, each with their 10 nekudas. And samach is aleph daled nun yud, which is dibur, abni safasai tiftach. When you put the two together, you have sa'ara, which is a storm wind that destroys. This destructive energy is called achar hadvarim. It's connected to the chamesh dinim, the 5 letters of Elokim, the 5 closing letters of Mansapach. And anytime that a person wants to start something new, a new project, a new idea, something hopeful, lepesach, minute a door is open, chatas revetz. Right away this klipa comes to shut it down. We called it Amalek yesterday. And it's the one that is mekatrig and presents the nisayon. Right? Like we said, it's mekatrig first, then presents the nisayon later. Vayihi achar hadvarim velikim nisas es Avram. Right? He already says it's too late. He already puts you achar hadvarim. Everything's already over before it even began. And the Rebbe says that when we use dibur about others or about ourselves primarily, that shuts things down in this way, that are dan lekaf chayva and not lekaf zechus, then we are embodying an aspect of Kate's kol basar. We are embodying that aspect. And a person has to work on this, to overcome this, and to find silence. That's what we ended yesterday, as yakim sa'ara l'dmama. We want to transform that sa'ara, that loud storm wind, that destructive storm wind, into silence. Or silence is in sound what calm is, right, in experience. Sa'ara is a storm wind, right? Sa'ara is chaos. It blows everything around. Damama means sheket, means patience, means going slow. We're going to see that Torah Lamaches is extremely connected to Torah Vav. Extremely. It's like a correlate Torah to Torah Vav. Already right here in the beginning, you have the concept of demima. Right? If you remember Torah Vav, the Rebbe said that the ikar of tshuva is that a person is yishma b'zyoinai, hears himself being embarrassed. You're going to see yidaim v'yishtag. And a person is able to remain silent. Yakem sa'ara lidmama. There's already the concept of demima shtika. We're going to see the concept of busha, tshuva al tshuva. So it's all going to come back up in this Torah. Lamaches is extraordinary. It really covers a huge gamut of so many different aspects of what we've been learning until now. Says the Heilige Rebbe, we continue with Eis Gimel. You know what? I need the Pirish, if you don't mind, the Ravatia's Pirish, yeah? It's volume 2, I believe. Thank you so much. Says the Heilige Rebbe, a person needs to be male the dibur to shirish. Where's the shirish of dibur? Shehu azraya. That is the concept of the zroya, the hand. Sheim chamesh etzbein shebiyad small, which are the 5 fingers on the left hand. Shehem chamisha gevuras. Because the 5 gevuras, are associated with the 5 fingers on the left hand, right? That's where dibur begins. It's rooted in bina ultimately. She spoke a lot about in the context of Torah Lamed Zayin. Thank you very much. And it's almost, without getting into too much the Kabbalistic depth, it's called the left hand of bina. It's an aspect of a hand in bina that are the root of the chamesh etzbais, the 5 fingers of the hand, that ultimately manifest, as we're going to see in Zer Ampin, which is in the lower midas, in the actual sphere of bina, which is droya smala as the left hand, which is, right, the sphere of Gevurah. And it's 5 fingers, which are the 5 letters mansapach, which are also the 5 letters elokim, which is the same idea, right? Ki ikra dibur, says the Rebbe, because dibur is al yidei chameshus moitzais hapeh, is through the 5 moitzais hapeh, right? There are 5 categories of sounds that we can make with the different parts of our mouth: the throat letters, and the palate letters, and the teeth letters, and the lip letters, right? And the tongue letters. All these different, or the air, the breath sounds, the hey, right? The whole aleph base is split into 5 groupings of letters, right, that come from the different parts of the mouth. They're called the chameshus moitzais hapeh, and that's why there are 5. That's why all the sounds of the aleph base can be traced back to categories of 5, because it correlates to the 5 letters mansabach, to the 5 letters elokim, to the 5 fingers on the left hand, the sphere of Gevurah. Shehema Gevurais, and the peh is also the realm of Gevurah. K'moshe kasam mi malel Gevurais Hashem, right? Speaking brings about the Gevurah of Hashem. Shal yidei Gevurais nasa hadibur, right? Dibur is an incredibly Gevurah-oriented experience, because we've said many times in the past, kol klape dibur, voice in relation to speech, is infinite, right? It's unlimited. And then once a person expresses their voice through their vocal cords and projects it into the klei hadibur, into the mouth with its chameshus moitzais hapeh is called mechatech, right? Chituch hadibur means that a person should pronounce things clearly. Diction, it's called, right? Diction, right? Diction, right? How a person enunciates their words clearly. It's called chituch hapeh. What does it mean, lachtoch? To cut, right? It's thin. That's what our sounds in our mouth are doing, right, to the voice. The voice is just one unified entity. It projects, and then all the different parts of our mouth are essentially cutting up that voice in one way or another. It's cutting it up because it says lam, it is l, right? So the voice comes out, and then boom, you stopped it, right? Say it's right. It's preventative. You're blocking up, you're punctuating the sounds. That's an inyan of din. It's an inyan of chituch. It's also an inyan of limitation, because once a person expresses a particular sound, that sound, like we've said many times in the past now, can no longer be rendered into any other sound. That word, the meaning that we expressed, can no longer be any other word once it comes out in a limited form as a result of the klei hadibor that are taking the unqualified kol and being mitzamtzim it, limiting it, constricting it. Shal yidei Gevurah is nasa hadibor. Dibor has to do with Gevurah. Another pasuk, right, that relates dibor to Gevurah. And another pasuk, finally, Rebbe brings three rayas over here. The pasuk in Yirmiyahu, pasuk Chav Gimel, Parach Chav Gimel rather, is haloi koi dvari ke'esh nu'umasha. Hashem correlates dibor to esh. Esh, of course, is Gevurah. Klape chesed, which is mayim. Okay, so three different sources the Rebbe uses to tell us that the source of dibor is in Gevurah. What does this mean more globally, more collectively, in the flow of the lesson that we're learning, right? What does it mean to be rectifying our dibor? So, if you think of it, dibor is our sense of self. Dibor is possible when there are two, that I'm communicating with something. Dibor is not possible, right, when there's nobody to communicate with. A person could talk to themselves, right? But in its classical sense, communication is to communicate to. It's dialogical, it's relational, right? And a person can speak to themselves. That's not what speech is for, right? Speech is for communicating outward. A person can think to themselves, right? Speech means I'm projecting outward toward a consciousness that can perceive. Speech is Gevurah. Gevurah, especially in the context of Torah Lamed Zayin, which I said we'd come back to, all connected, is the emergence of self from the realm of Bria, right? As a result of needing to split creation, like we learned, Ki Ikar HaBria, it begin Nishmas. Hashem should make himself known to us. There should be a relationship, right, which we're able to share together. Dibor is rooted in Gevurah, our sense of self, especially Miyam Malal Gevurah is Hashem, right? The ability to praise. You don't a person doesn't praise themselves; they praise an other, right? Miyam Malal is as a result of Gevurah is Hashem. There's Gevurah that enables me to be what I am, enables Hashem to be what He is, what it is, even though Be'etzem, I and Hashem are really one Be'emet. But I'm separated enough in order to experience my own sense of consciousness to then be able to communicate to the other, to praise the other. This is another more globally relevant, as we're going to see, definition or understanding, explanation of what it means that dibor is associated with Gevurah. So when a person's sense of self has gone wrong, so the memela, their dibor about themselves is going to be extremely self-deprecating, because they have a sense of self, but they deprecate it because they live in a consciousness of achar advarim. They live in a consciousness of lepesach chatas roivetz, because they've gone so deeply into their denigrated sense of self that what have they done? Spoke about this yesterday. They've given up hope. This goes back to what we learned in Torah Lamed Zayin as well, right? Torah Lamed Vav, rather. Labor, sticking it out till the end. They've given up. So they live in a consciousness of self-deprecation. Their sense of self, which is supposed to be elevated, lifted up into a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and is supposed to recognize any challenges that a person encounters as the labor process in order to become relational, in order to cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And instead, this person has been taken over by the spirit of Achar Dvarim, so that they experience their sense of self in such a way where they're held back by it, they're held down by it. And we want to rectify this dibur, because dibur is Gevurah. Gevurah is my sense of self. I want to rectify this. Says the Rebbe back inside. The beginning of a person's elevation of dibur, hume roishai, is going to be from the roish of dibur, from the head of dibur. Hainu, meaning me'amuvchar ha'emes sheyesh b'hadibur, from the choicest truth about, or from the choicest aspect of truth within dibur. Shehu nikra roish, which is called the head of dibur. The choicest element of dibur, the pinnacle of speech, the quintessence of communication, is emes. The more emes something a dibur has, the more quality dibur is. They say talk is cheap. Talk that is cheap is not really talk. Talk is cheap. What does it mean? Right? Why is it cheap? Because a person can say millions of things if they don't intend to carry it out. So then, person, is what's the lashon? Emor ma'at v'aseh harbe is the opposite. It's emor harbe v'aseh ma'at. Right? Talk is cheap. Yeah. Right? Talk is cheap. But when a person says a dibur emes, that dibur, it has weight. The dibur emes. The more emes something is, the more authentic it is, the more the stronger the quality of communication. This is communication. Because again, if communication is self-disclosure, so then to the degree that a person isn't really communicating their internal world to somebody outside of them, it's not really dibur. Until you get to the point where a person is expressing emes. Until you get to the point where a person is actually sharing what's actually, as we're going to see, what's really going on with them. In a way of authenticity and vulnerability, it's not dibur. Because before the person has come to his rectification, I'm sorry, one line earlier, kama emes, says the Rebbe, there are many layers of truth. Many, many layers of truth. Emes nas adarim. Like the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, especially before the end of time, truth is fragmented and there are millions of different truths. Truth is multifaceted. Many different facets of truth. But ukamaisha kasav roish devarcha emes. The pinnacle of dibur is the choicest among the truths. It's the essence of the essence. Sometimes you have a conversation with a person. Happens sometimes. People come to talk to me. I come to speak to people. We sit and we talk. And over the course of the conversation about the same thing, you could start to reveal deeper and deeper and deeper layers until it could be a half hour in and then you say, okay, now we're talking. Right? You ever heard that expression? Now we're talking. Now, what do you mean now we're talking? You're talking for a half hour. What, even colloquially, what do you mean when you say that? Right? Talk is cheap. Now we're talking. Because klape, what we're saying now, we weren't really talking. We were, because it was a room that, we were going around and around the point. Now we're talking. This is communication. Now we're actually speaking about the truth. If we're speaking about the truth, then now we're speaking. Prior to speaking about the truth is not dibur. Cannot rectify speech without speaking the truth. Ki koidim tikunai, before this was rectified. Truth was cast earthward. And a person couldn't speak one word of the emes. Because the ruach sa'ara was too intense. What's the ruach sa'ara? It's the destructive, hopeless force of achar hadvar, lepasachatas roivitz. What does it mean that a person's sense of self is so blemished that they're not able to speak the ultimate truth because of the ruach sa'ara? I believe it means that in a posture of hopelessness, there are layers of the reality that we simply can't even admit to, we don't even want to look at. Because if I'm already beset by despair, there are layers of the truth that are just too ugly. They're just too low. They're too. I can't afford to go to that place. I'm finished already. I'm already. I've given up. There are certain layers of the truth of what's going on inside of me that I can't even address. I'm not even willing to open up that Pandora's box, and see how deep the rabbit hole goes, and to really go deep into the system and try to figure out, like, wow, and really look at things that might actually make me wonder whether for years and years, fill in the blank, my marriage, or my, other relationships, parenthood, ways of thinking, opinions, and so on. Like, I'm not willing to challenge any of that, threaten it. Meaning, I'm not willing to do that work. I'll do work to an extent, but I'm worried that if I go down to that place, and if I'm actually able to bring to the fore certain layers of my darkness, which all of us have, shadows, because I experience my sense of self outside the context of an infinitely compassionate being who holds space for all of my mishagasim and can help me reframe it as a labor process and just give me another reason to call out to him in that ayin kalin, like we learned, right, in order to bring that labor process to fruition so that it can finally become freed. So that it can finally, going back to Lamed Zayin, so that was Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, so that I can finally put my sense of self with all of the pairs of 7, like we learned in last time's Torah, run through them because our Adam and Bein, Matzura Chaimer, Chachmas zechus, R Chayshah, Chaya Miriam, Zikarin Shikha, Nefesh Guf, and to recognize that that's okay, because the only reason I have the sense of self is to bring it back into the context of a loving creator. If I'm already in Ruach Sa'ara world, my Dibor is already Nifgam, then there are layers of the MS I can't get to. The reason I'm in the Yerdu Taimas is because the Ruach Sa'ara, it's referring to the people who are traveling by boat, right, and have to make a goimel because they were caught in a storm wind. Yalu Shemaim, Yerdu Taimas. Mivulbal. The tikkun of Dibor is that a person doesn't have that bilbul hadas because they know that hopelessness is not an option. Hopelessness is illogical. It just doesn't fit into the maracha of the way Hashem created the world. There is no despair in the world at all. If I can begin with that foundation, then there's no place that I'm not willing to go. There's nothing that I'm not willing to say about myself to another. Because there's no use hiding. Because the darkest, ugliest, most challenging realities that are unfolding in my nefesh are exactly why I'm on this planet. They're exactly why I'm here, is to work through these things. Who am I who's benefiting, right? When I'm hiding what's going on inside of me. Not me, not Hashem, not anybody else. Like what? If you put it into the broader context of a life that's lived 120 years of Ezra Hashem on this life. A person keeps it repressed all the way to the end. Like, who benefits? So now that Hashem goes back to Shema, it has tikkunim, it's supposed to fix. That's the good stuff. We're here to work through that stuff. And to find a way and a context to bring it to the fore. Whether it's in therapy, whether it's with a rabbi, whether it's with a good friend, whether it's with a spouse, like working things through and being able to actually come to the realization that I'm human like everybody else and I have stuff like everybody else. And to be able to find a context to work through that stuff with a consciousness of hope. And not allowing that self-oriented baggage to weigh me so down that I can't even look at it because I'm already in a consciousness of Ruach Sa'ara. Listen to this, it's very deep. This is an aspect of what the Gemara says in Pesachim, in the beginning of Pesachim. Ikem hakasuv teisha oisiyos. Shalala haitzi davar megunim bipiv. It's a fascinating source that the Rebbe brings. Because the Gemara says that in the context of Noach and the teivah, there was a mabul. Noach builds the teivah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Noach to bring from the behemoths hatahiras, and from mi behema asher einenu tahira, from the animals that are not tahar. Tahar and that are not tahar. Says the Gemara, it would have been much more economical for the Torah to have said mina behema ha tameya. Instead of saying mi behema tameya, it added 9 extra letters of mi behema asher einenu tahira. There are 9 extra letters there. Yeah. Mi behema asher einenu tahira. And this is a positive thing, meaning the Gemara is trying to say that the Torah is so beautiful and doesn't want to say anything. It couldn't even say Tameya. It was willing, and we know how careful the Torah is about every letter. It was willing to go ahead and to say 9 extra letters so as not to say the word Tameya. In the context of the Gemara, this is a positive thing. Says the Rebbe, yeah, it's a positive thing when the Torah does it. It's not a positive thing when we do it. Amazing thing. Careful. It is a positive thing when we don't say not nice words, right? Lubavitcher Rebbe Yadua was very strong on this. He wouldn't call a hospital a base chaylim as a base refuah, v'chulei v'chulei. That's true. It's taking it into a broader context. When we go out of our way not to talk about our stuff, when we are ikem, and we add extra things to make ourselves look better than we actually are, when we go out of our way to avoid having to face the reality of the stuff that we have to work on, that's called ikem hakasav. We are ikem. That's a nakmimius. Amazing thing. The Rebbe is using a positive source of the Gemara Pesachim. He's lifting it out of the context, putting it into the context of our emotional well-being, and telling us there's something deeply wrong if we're not able to do the work humbly, transparently, honestly. Zeh remez, kesherach sa'ara shoylet, as I ain bi acholis ledaber, listen to this word, b'derech yosher. There's no yosher. Just to say the thing as it is. There are pretenses, there are all these different, airs that people have about them. What a beautiful privilege to be able to sit with people in an honest environment. I've had experiences like this. Not many people have these experiences. I was compelled along my own journey with mental health to experience, whether it was therapy or whether it was most specifically group therapy. There was they call it a workshop. It's a tzaddik of a guy. He's not related to me. Once we're on the topic, neither is Zev of Zev Klein fame. I don't know. I don't think that we're related. People ask that all the time. We're very grateful for his sponsorships. This yid is called Elisha Klein. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. He runs something called the Well-Being Experience. Phenomenal. 3-day retreat. Then he was doing it in Tekoa. Now he does it elsewhere. And I'm not going to go too deeply into what it is, but it's a space of MS. It's a space where a bunch of strangers, 15, 20 strangers, from different backgrounds come into the same room together. And in the beginning, everybody's still, introducing themselves formally and, coming up with all their different judgments about each other and what we think about this one and that one. And then over the course of 3 days, MS, Yosher. And they cultivate that in many different therapeutic models, modalities, different sessions, different experiences. I mean, it was utterly mind-blowing to me. This was a bunch of years back. Mind-blowing. Highly recommended. What you get in an experience like that, and I think it could be true for therapy also if you work with a good therapist, is the oxygen, is the freedom to just be, to be real. Society doesn't really afford us that opportunity so often. On the contrary, it represses that because everything's about image and everything's about success and everything's about, and what it does is it strips away genuine authenticity. Now, is it possible for society as a whole to function with everybody airing all their stuff and, being able to find, I don't know. I think about that all the time. Like, until what point can you turn up the level of self-disclosure, until things start getting like weird and uncomfortable and etc. So sometimes you have to sort of create an environment. But if you think of it, back in the old days when they didn't have communities and neighborhoods and schools and this kind of thing, they lived in a retreat the whole time. It was just your family. It was your little village. It was your little. That's how humans lived. There was no hiding. There was no heirs. What do you mean? We're in a tribe. We're in a clan. Everybody knew everything about you. You were totally authentic. Today we live in a world of artifice. So bad has the artifice become that part and parcel of the artifice is the projection of vulnerability. It's part of the artifice now. That in order to be in, a person has to create these social media, TikToks and all these things, like showing how vulnerable they are, and like it's mamish, like it's a klipa NØRA, like it's the opposite. It's the opposite. To genuinely be able to get into a space. It's not. You can't snap your finger and it happens. It has to be a special zechus min hashamayim. A zechus min hashamayim. You have to seek it out. Seek out settings where there's the invitation to be really you. Fully. Go back to childhood. Work through things. These are real things, and our dar is doing the healing in ways that our parents and grandparents they couldn't have dreamed of. There was no such thing as a well-being experience in Leipzig, or wherever else people came from in Poland. There was no Mezhbish didn't have. Okay, Mezhbish might have been different, but Mezhbish, they were mamish. They didn't have these things. They couldn't have had these things. Their brain was on survival. They weren't. Today, Baruch Hashem, we have a little bit more freedom to have the opportunity to seek out these experiences, to enter into settings of deep, deep vulnerability, deep but genuine vulnerability, not construed vulnerability, so that we all look good because look how vulnerable I am. Real authenticity. Yosher. Because what's the point? I should push myself more deeply into despair. I can't speak Yosher. So the only thing that I can do is like the pasuk does, right? La'akem, instead of saying Tameya, it says Inen Tahira. No, Tameya. Say the thing. Right? Be open. Again, I don't mean use dirty language. I mean what it means metaphorically, right? Meaning, just be able to say, I have a problem. That's it. To be able to admit and say, I need help, right? Now, not all kinds of things and strategies. At a certain point, they call it rock bottom, right? In the addictions world, like a person gets to a point where, like paradoxically, it's interesting. I'll say rock bottom. Evan, maybe I said this in the past. Evan ma'aswa boinim, right? The rock of the bottom, right? In that moment, hoisel roish pina, roish dvarcha emes. The roish of a person's dibur, which is emes, is able to be activated. Daika, because a person reaches the point of Evan ma'aswa boinim. that will compel a person into it because at that point, hopefully, you have nothing to lose anyway, right? Person's compelled into a setting like that, one way or another. Mm-hmm. Even Shasiya, so many of the Havanim we can speak about. So I just want to put it a little bit more into the context of the actual pasuk, right? What's it speaking about? It's speaking about the Mabul. Why did the Mabul happen? Pagam habris. Pagam habris was one of the things. Pagam habris, Hama'ar is connected to Pagam habris halash. We're going to speak about Pagam habris a lot in this Torah now. These two things are connected. Dibor.
Pagam habris actually mean? What does that Pagam?
Pagam is a blemish, right? The blemish of the moral, right? Sexuality is connected to dibor, to the way a person talks. Right? There's a concept of bris hama'ar and bris halash, and these two brisin that parallel one another. So the Mabul is this ruach sa'ara. It's chaos. In that context, which is a context of ikaim, because Noach had not yet gotten onto the teivah, in a general Mabul context, that's when you have this akmimius, right? Where in the context of telling Noach what to do to save himself from the Mabul, the dibur is not direct. It's not direct.
So it was talking about Tumah,
yeah.
Which is why it had to use thick.
In other words,
it's not what the Torah said was good. The Torah said was good, but it was because the topic is Tumah, therefore I had to go around. Right.
That's what we're saying, right? But I mean, he couldn't just say Tameya. I'm not sure if we're, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tameya. What kind of Tumah? Behema Tameya. Torah Lamed Zayin, Behema. Shachtim the Bahamias. Where does Noach escape to? Onto a teivah. Teivah is a word. Teivah is dibur. So what compels Noach into the teivah is diburim of akmimius. Is a state, a pre-teivah state of Mabul, of ruach sa'ara, of pagam habris, pagam halash, and everything's falling apart. What's the teivah? Go back to Torah test, which just started yesterday with, which might have sounded a little odd in context because it was just out of context. But I started off with reminding us about Torah test, which is all about getting out of the darkness by speaking a dibur emes. Remember? Going back to Torah test. Should we flip back to it for a second? Flip back quickly to Torah test. Ois Gimel, it's page Yud Beis. Six, 7 lines down. The Rebbe said over there, there are many doors to get out of darkness. You see where I am in Ois Gimel? A few lines down. There are many, many doors to get in, so there's got to be many doors to get out. Right? Doors are two-way pieces of technology. Right? You can go in, you can go out. When a person doesn't see it, a person's blind. And he says there's no way out. But what he doesn't realize is one word of truth and a person can get out. Person is stuck in the darkness of hopelessness all the while that they're unwilling to communicate their experience to someone else. All the while that they're stuck trying to protect a certain image, and then internally they're going through turmoil and they don't have the capacity to actually share with someone else what's actually going on, then yeah, they're in the dark. Can't carry on that way. It's not authentic, it's not real. When a person can comfortably, safely disclose to a good friend, or to a good friend that you pay to be your good friend, called a therapist, or a group of people, right, who are all compelled into that group. If everybody's there, they're there for a reason, right? It's not a supermarket. It didn't just happen to end up there. Every person there is coming with with stuff to work through. And there are millions of these different kinds of things. I just spoke about one kind of retreat. There are not so many that go on here locally. Yeah, I'm going to mention it. There is something that's happening next month locally. And if a person here feels that they could benefit from such a thing, please speak to me afterwards. There is something that's happening, rarely, I might add. But in Eretz Yisrael, there are plenty of these things. In America, everywhere, these retreats happen. Here, less so, but there is something next month. There you can speak MS, and MS will save you. Ki ikar, go back. Ki ikar meir HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The main light is Hashem, because Hashem Oyer V'Yishi. Hashem is our light and our salvation. By the sheker misalik as a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Sheker, and a person thinks he's doing God a favor by speaking fine and vile, and only saying nice things, and speaking, in a way that makes himself look like a tzaddik. Sheker is misalik a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's misalik because they're not getting to the kishkas of life. Hashem's Rahman Liba boy. Hashem wants them. The MS. The good, the bad, the ugly, the behema asher Torah, and the behema tameya. Not ikim. Etc., 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 right? So when a person speaks a word of MS and Hashem is light, then all of a sudden you can find the ways out. Not only can you find the way out, and I want to stress this very strongly, not only can you find the way out to get you back to where you used to be, it's like, can't remember in pop culture what this image is coming up. Yeah, maybe like Dorothy, maybe the Wizard of Oz, something like that, where she opens the door and like we're not in Kansas anymore. You don't open the door and go back into Kansas. All of a sudden, the door that gets you out, oh my gosh, a different life. Once you've experienced what humans are capable of when they actually show up authentically, genuinely, vulnerably, and really get to know each other as humans, not as the guy next to you in shul who has an image to protect, and not the guy, not your Rebbe's teacher who, when you sit in parents' teachers, he's the teacher, you're the parent. All these shkarim fall away. They're useful shkarim, but they're shkarim. Everything falls away. All there is vulnerable human soul with vulnerable human soul. Vulnerable human soul in this body, with this financial standing, with this profession, with all this external garment, and the human soul next to you that has its appearance and its experiences and its age and if you can get in a setting to strip all that stuff away and just get down to then the door that opens. I mean, most people never in their whole life have an experience like this. They never actually experience communication. They think they're talking, but once a person gets into a space like that, you say, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Everything else is not talking. I bless it upon you, my friends, if you've not experienced such a thing like this. I bless it upon you. Now, and they say, now we're talking. Different. It's different. It's different. You come back, oh my gosh, it's different. You never look at another person in the same way again. Because all of a sudden you've seen people without their armor, that their protection.
Very good. Mask.
Okay, the mask, right? And then you go further down in this page, and the whole thing is about the teivah, remember? That was the teivah. Val ama techalenim elamala. Rosh teivah's MS. Pesach ha-teivah b'tzida tasim. And then you find the way out. Through the door. Yesh Ayrim Evan Taiv, Yesh Ayrim Chaloin. That whole drasha over there, which is going to come up again into our Kufyud base. Kufyud base, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we have to do. We have to get to the teivah. The teivah is going to save us. The teivah, the only way I can get to the teivah is if I have a healthy concept of Hashem and the spiritual journey. Otherwise, my sense of self, my Gevurah, my dibur is crushing. I failed as an isolated, independent entity. I can't move. There are places within myself I'm just not capable of going. I'm not willing to go. It's too scary or dangerous for me to go. I'll fall apart entirely. I don't have the foundation. The Rebbe is trying to give us the healthy foundation. First of all, get that ruach sa'ara voice of achar advarim out of your head, out of your consciousness. That's first of all. Now you can start speaking dibur emes. Dibur emes will rectify the dibur of sa'ara, of samachay adni dibur, that's ra. All of a sudden I'll find a door. LePesach, and there will not be chatas rebes. There will not be anything there. It'll just be an open door. Freedom. I won't have to struggle with anything. I've already embraced myself. I've already embraced my stuff. I'm not hiding anymore. It's a terrible thing to hide. God created the world because he hates hiding. Hashem, listen to this. Hashem created the world to disclose of himself, not to hide himself. And he created us in his image. So in a certain way, we are created also to make ourselves known to others. But they have to walk around the whole world to protect some stupidity, some kind of something. And that's going to prevent us from being known. There's nothing more painful than this, because the only thing that we want is to be known. The only thing that we want is to be seen, genuinely seen. This is the opposite of what most people think. Most people think that what they want is kavod. And they're right, but they're wrong. Because kavod can mean honor, glory. Kavod can also mean presence. Kavod is shechina, means indwelling. The king's garments are his kavod, right? Not because they are royal garments and they are garments that honor, but because garments are supposed to reflect the inside. People get all the honor in the world, and names on buildings and applause and praise, and it won't ever give them what they're looking for. On the contrary, if it isn't authentic, meaning if it isn't touching their place of authenticity, it'll make them even more miserable, because it'll fortify this that they feel locked up and trapped in the presence of public perception, because all they want is for people to actually see them. The emes, not what they appear to be. Okay, we're going to stop here. All this is extremely deep, and I went very long because it's such a modern perspective. It's such a radically modern perspective. The Rebbe was so ahead of his time. It's amazing the way that he makes reference to this. I looked at other Mefarshim and they interpret this completely differently, and I don't think it's relevant. No, of course it's relevant. You can look it up yourself the way that not some zech.
Is to talk superficially.
Not some zech.
The same letters as Amok.
Not some zech. They you can see the way that they interpret it. I mamish believe that this is what the Rebbe is saying. Really do. And I think we'll end with this. Part of what enables this interpretation is a person who's gone through this stuff. So if you're just sitting and learning Likutei Moharan as an academic exercise, you're not going to see this in the words, and that's how I felt from the very beginning when I first opened the Likutei Moharan. You know what I'm saying? Because I live it. I lived it. That darkness, and Baruch Hashem, that light, and that journey, and that experience. And so all of a sudden there are things on my radar that are just not on the radar of others. There are experiences, thoughts, struggles, ups and downs. And then when you have that life experience, when you have that journey, then you go back to the words and you read it, and it's like, yeah, I know what this means, because not because like I chopped it, because it's me, because he's speaking about me. He's speaking about my own journey. I know what these things mean. Should be zechus to continue to unveil the true meaning, or one potentially true meaning, or a truer meaning of the Rebbe's words.
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי, האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני